Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at the US Constitution, but honestly, I want you to completely forget the idea of it being just some dusty old document. Think of it more like an architect's brilliant blueprint, one that's specifically designed to bring total order out of absolute chaos. When you're building something that needs to last for centuries, you literally can't just wing it, right? You need a master plan. So we're going to look really closely at that master plan today.
Here's our game plan for today's explainer. First up, the need for order. Second, the three branches of government. Third, amendments and federal authority. Fourth, checking power and fairness. And finally, number 5, education rooted in morality. All right, starting off with section 1, the need for order. Finding order out of chaos.
Think about it. Before you can build a stable house, you absolutely need a solid foundation rooted in really clear rules. If you just start throwing wood and nails together without a design, well, that house is going to collapse for sure. The framers of the American government knew that society works the exact same way. Without a structural design for law and leadership, human nature just naturally drifts toward disorder. Which brings us to a really powerful starting point. But everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way. That's from 1 Corinthians 14:40. Just as God desires order, the framers knew they had to avoid chaos by designing a meticulously fitting system. They totally understood that an orderly government isn't just about handing down rules, it's about creating a stable environment where people can actually thrive. It's really a reflection of a higher divine order.
So the very first part of this blueprint is the preamble. Now, before you get into all the detailed schematics of how the government is actually going to operate, this introduction takes a step back. It establishes the foundational purpose for the whole shebang. It essentially tells us the why, way before we ever get to the what. It sets the tone and the big goals for the entire nation. Moving right along to section 2, 3 branches of government, splitting the power. Now we're getting into the what and the how. We're going to see exactly how the Constitution slices up responsibilities so that no single group gets too much control. You guys, this was a massive, revolutionary idea at the time, taking all the power of a government and intentionally breaking it into pieces. What's super interesting is how neatly the first 3 articles act as specific rooms in our government house, and each room has a very distinct job. Article 1 sets up the legislative branch. Their job is making the laws. Article 2 creates the executive branch. They're the ones enforcing those laws. And Article 3 establishes the judicial branch. Their entire role is to interpret the laws. By putting these distinct jobs into 3 totally separate articles, the Constitution ensures that the power to make, enforce, and judge the law never, ever sits in the same hands. Which brings us to Section 3, Amendments and Federal Authority, Rules, Changes, and State Powers. But hey, a house might need remodeling over time, right? And the different people living there need to know how to share the space. The framers knew they weren't perfect, they knew times would change, so they actually built flexibility right into the very structure of the document. So the big takeaway here is that the later articles provide the essential rules for how states keep their own specific powers while also drawing really clear boundaries around federal authority. They also lay out the exact amendment process, the rules for how to make those structural changes over time. And crucially, we have the Bill of Rights and the later amendments. These act as your ultimate shields, protecting your personal freedoms. They're basically the strict boundaries telling the government exactly which rooms they are never allowed to enter in your personal life. Let's look at Section 4, checking power and fairness, and why all of this actually matters. And here is exactly why this matters for you. This structure isn't just about memorizing a bunch of civic facts. It's deeply, deeply tied to fairness and preventing the real dangers of absolute power. Because when power goes unchecked, people get hurt. We can clearly see the absolute genius of the system right here. On one side, we have the huge threat of an abuse of power, which happens when one branch takes over completely. On the other side, we have balanced power, where the branches actually share and check each other's responsibilities. This blueprint makes it incredibly hard for one branch to just run away with the whole thing, actively preventing tyranny. It is a brilliant system built on a very healthy skepticism of human nature. Which leads perfectly into this biblical morality tip. God values justice, fairness, and order. You see, the design of our government didn't just happen in a moral vacuum. Just as this constitutional document was specifically designed to prevent abuse and protect rights, we are called to live in ways that honor fairness, protect the dignity of others, and use whatever influence we have to do what is right. We're really supposed to mirror these exact same principles in our daily lives. Okay, let's do a quick mid-lesson knowledge check. I really want you to engage with this. Without looking back at your notes, can you mentally name the 3 distinct branches we just mapped out? Think about it. The lawmakers, the law enforcers, and the law interpreters. Right, it's the legislative, executive, and judicial branches.
Let's push just a little further. Think back to our blueprint table. Which specific articles built those first two essential rooms? It's literally as easy as 1, 2, 3. Article 1 for the legislative branch and Article 2 for the executive.
And remember the very beginning of the document? What is the vital job of that introduction? The preamble isn't just a polite greeting. It sets the entire purpose. It tells us exactly why the Constitution was written in the very first place.
Finally, I want you to do a little research and reflect on this homework question. Exactly how many times have we had to use that remodeling process to add amendments? It is such a great exercise to see how the living, breathing structure of this blueprint has actually grown over the centuries to protect individual freedoms. To wrap up our explainer today, we come to Section 5, Education Rooted in Morality, which is the HeroesMart Academy philosophy. We really have to look at how the mechanics of government connect directly to the mechanics of the human heart. Learning all these structural facts is wonderful, sure, but without the right heart posture, it simply isn't enough. As we engage with this content, this really powerful scripture from Romans 8, 6, 7 reminds us of a fundamental truth. It promises peace of mind to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. The true peace in a society, and even just within yourself, comes when our worldly knowledge is guided by spiritual wisdom and a reliance on God. This brilliantly illustrates our core philosophy today. The HeroesMart Academy Godly Learners series intentionally intertwines biblical morality with education because having civic facts without a moral compass is ultimately really harmful. Education without morality will hurt. If you know all the rules but you don't actually care about justice, fairness, or the dignity of your fellow human beings, you can use that education to cause profound damage. I mean, we see that happen in history all the time. So, I am going to leave you with this provocative thought to reflect on today. What is the point of being smart and supposedly educated if you're continuing to make bad choices that hurt people? It's a huge question, right? Ensure your education is always paired with the wisdom and the spiritual morality to use it fairly, justly, and for the good of absolutely everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep seeking that balance and keep learning.